Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you again. Hope you had a great holiday season. In this episode, we're going to be taking a look at the question, are wigs or hair systems better than hair transplants? Now, the reason this is important is because a lot of people think that if you have the opportunity to get a hair transplant, that it is better than a hair system, but we're going to take a look at some of just the facts of both of these, and we can kind of make a little bit of a logical determination about where we stand on if we think that hair systems or hair transplants might be better. But real quick, guys, this video is sponsored by Lord Hair. They're doing a holiday sale. All the details are going to be in the description below, but it might be a chance for you to get a hair system from them if that's who you want to get one from. So check out the link down below and let's get back to the video. So we're going to start by talking about hair systems first, and we're going to basically just kind of go down the road here. And we're going to take a look at some of the factors that you have to consider, right? So the first one is you have to keep buying them, right? So what does this mean? Depending on the hair system you get, you might be looking at $250 to $350 or potentially even more if it's custom per, let's just say, 3 to 4 months, right? So per year, you're potentially looking at about $1,000 a year, right? So that is an absolute cost, and it's something that you do have to consider, right? $250, $350 today, not that big of a deal, but you have to ask yourself, is this something that you want to be budgeting out for every single month? And some of you may want to, some of you may not want to. That might be too high. Of course, things like adhesives come into play, obviously, just hair care, stuff that you would be getting if you had a full head of hair, but you don't, just like me. We're sad apes in that story. But there is a cost to it, right? Now, here's another factor. You have to attach them, right? So that means they have to be adhered to your head in some kind of fashion. You can do this with clips. You could potentially do this with tape. You could do this with a liquid adhesive. Different ways to go about it. Some people find this to be uncomfortable. Some people find this to be undesirable, and that's okay. This, of course, is a advantage to some people, and depending on how you look at it, right? The fact that you have to attach them means that you can change them out, that they're interchangeable, they're interoperable. So if you want to change your style on the fly, it's super easy to do, which guess what, with your real hair, not that easy to do. So we're going to put that as the next point, which is easy to change your style up. And this could mean, your hair color, could mean the curliness of your hair, could mean the density, could mean a whole bunch of different things. But with hair systems, it's actually really, really easy to change things and try things out. You don't have to wait a year to try a new style, or that's a real thing, right? Like, some people have to wait months or years to try out a style to see if it's for them. Hair systems, you don't really have to do that much. You have to grow out your sides, but you can have short hair, long hair in an instant up top. So that is pretty dang cool. Now, the next thing, I'm just gonna put no drugs. So thin minoxidil. Hair systems, you don't have to take drugs. That is a huge advantage for some people. Other people don't care, but it's statistically unlikely that you're going to suffer side effects from finasteride based off of what the research says, but there is always that chance. And when we're talking about something like sexual side effects, whether it's a nocebo, a placebo, whatever it is, right? It is a serious thing for a lot of people. Of course, minoxidil can have cardiovascular symptoms with it. That's not to be left out as a factor. So, there are definitely health-related issues when it comes to drugs, and with the hair system, you don't really have to do that. Of course, some people are skeptical. Some people feel uneasy, or they want to consider the fact that adhesives potentially could be chemicals. There are safer adhesives. There are safer adhesives that use less, I don't want to use the word toxic, but that use less harsh chemicals. So that is an option for you. Now, another one, this kind of goes into the price, but it's cheaper upfront than a hair transplant, right? You can get into this basically for, a couple $100 and try it out, see if it's for you. Hair transplant, not exactly so. We know that. So the next thing with that is kind of instant results. You know, you can walk into a salon and you can see if this is for you within literally like an hour. Hair transplant, once again, not so, we'll get into that, but this is something that is a lot of people find pretty attractive, right? The fact that you can go from no hair, feeling bad about yourself, to just getting this instant result and experimenting with it. And I think that is definitely in the pros column for hair systems and wigs, right? Now, here's another thing, right? You can have better hair than you'd have with a transplant. And the reason for this is because, of course, with a hair system, you know, you can pick the density, you can pick the color, you can pick the wave. You know, for some of us, we don't naturally have very great hair, right? Even that can be a limiting factor when it comes to hair transplants, which we'll talk about in the future of this video. But with a hair system, you can basically say, I want that, and you can get it, which is super cool. So there's a lot of choice with this. We'll talk about, you know, hairlines can be good, bad, depending on the hair system, the manufacturing of it, all of these things, right? And it can, some people feel insecure about their hairlines, and rightfully so. Sometimes they're way too thick, which is something you have to consider. That is, I think, one of the things that keeps people away. And it's just something that you have to weigh and see if it's right or not for you. But you know, another one is color fading, right? So this is obviously in the cons. Hair systems can fade in color, and that can create a discrepancy between your hair and the hair system hair. So this is something that you have to manage. You can kind of dye it and take care of it, but will take time. Of course, you know, with the fact that, you know, you have to keep buying them, right? It can be additive, it can stack up over time. If we're spending $1,000 a year over the course of 20 years, you know, you're looking at $20,000 maybe, right? So potentially a cost that adds up. So these are some of them, but leave in the comments down below if you guys have some other pros or cons. I'm gonna stop there because I think those are the main ones that I think about. We can move to hair transplants. Let's start with a pro, and that is they are in your head for good. Of course, you know, there's caveats to this right here, but hair transplants that actually are successfully transplanted are basically there, right? They stay, and that's awesome, right? Like once they're there, and you don't have to keep on, you know, taking care of them. Here's another, right? They are a one-time deal. There's caveats to this as well, but what I mean by this is, like, when you get them transplanted, they are there, and that means it could be good or bad, and it could require like some fixing through some surgery. It could mean that you're messed up, right? These are both factors that you have to consider, and you have to pick the right surgeon. So along with that, I'm just gonna say the hairline may or may not be good. You know, the hair plugs idea that comes from hair transplants is that the hairline really is like pluggy. It's not very well designed, and I think that there is a lot of technology and process innovation which is eliminating this, but it's something that you have to watch out for, and you could wind up with potentially a hairline that you really don't like. You know, and the reason that's kind of a big deal is because hair transplants are expensive. You know, depending on where you go, if you want to go to Turkey, you might get it cheaper, but you know, somewhere in America, you're looking at $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Like, it's significant cost. So, you know, that is something up front that can be prohibitive. It can prevent a lot of people from considering it or even entertaining the idea. So something you have to consider for sure. And, you know, hair system, you know, may be something that you have to pay for the rest of your life if you want to keep using it. But sometimes it's a little bit more accessible than, you know, hair transplant and putting that down that chunk of money, or taking a loan and having interest on it, right? Next up is the fact that it's surgery. That means that there's going to be downtime. It means that it is a serious thing. Although it is a cosmetic surgery, you are still going through surgery, right? There's the risk of infection. There is certain risks that come with surgery that should not be ignored, and that's serious. You know, with a hair system, it's pretty non-invasive, besides the fact that you have to shave your head, which we could put that in the cons category, I guess. Hair transplants are surgery, so this is something that needs to be considered. Next up, the fact that it's surgery, it's going to affect your density You may have great density in the back of your scalp or somewhere that they're going to transplant the hairs. You may not. This could be, once again, prohibitive. If you do not have a lot of density, if you do not have the right hair for a hair transplant, you might not even be a candidate. But either way, this is going to remove some of the density of the back of your hair. For a lot of people, it's a non-issue. It's okay and it doesn't affect them, but for some people, this needs to be considered. Next, you're going to be on drugs for the rest of your life. So hair loss is pretty much going to keep on occurring for you if you are genetically disposed to it. So because of that, you may have hair transplanted to those regions that have currently experienced some recession, but that doesn't mean that the hair that is still there on the top of your head in different places will not be exposed to that hair loss in the future, right? So what looks great now, 5 years from now, you might be very, very thin. And that's a very common story when it comes to hair transplants, is people are satisfied, they look great right now, but 5-10 years down the road, it's a different story. They have to get multiple hair transplants, multiple surgeries. So that $20 to $30 or $40,000 that they're spending, sometimes people are spending over $100K on this stuff. Like that is a very real thing that you do have to consider. Of course, you're not going to see results for a year or so after you get a hair transplant, so it's not immediate. It's going to take some time. So pro or con, it's just is what it is, right? It's a factor, and I think we need to address it. Now I'm going to also add this right here. So you have to continually fight hair loss. This kind of goes along the results of drug for life, but this is something that you're probably going to still be considering a lot. And depending on some hair system wearers, they think this stuff too, but for me, I kind of like set it and forget it. I'm just like, okay, cool. It is what it is. Using a hair system, not really worried about my hair loss so much. But I kind of feel that with those that get hair transplants, they're still looking at their hair loss and managing it and taking care of it with, whether it's drugs, supplements, derma rolling, all this kind of stuff. I see that pretty often. My friend who I haven't had on the channel for a while, DJ, or he was Keratin Brotherhood on YouTube, got a surgery years and years ago and still is managing it with finasteride, with derma rolling, all of this stuff. And he made a whole channel about it because he's still managing his hair loss, still trying to get that perfect look, which can be consuming, right? So it's something that has to be considered. Guys, these are some of the things that I've thought about as far as the pros and cons, and I don't think that there's a clear winner. I think it depends on who you are, what you want to do, what you don't want to do, what you're willing to do, and those are the factors that will determine whether or not it's something that you want to do. So leave a comment down below if I left something out, if you thought that I was fair, unfair. But let me know if you think that transplants are a viable alternative, if you think that they're superior, if you think that they're inferior. Let me know where your stance is. But thanks for watching this video, guys. We'll chat soon.